All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going through a series of video presentations I'm making based on the PowerPoint presentations for a couple of the Muroc textbooks. The books are Muroc's HTML5 and CSS3 4th edition and Muroc's JavaScript and jQuery 3rd edition. These two books are used for the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Web Development 1000 Web Development Technologies class. I'm in the middle of Chapter 14 and we're talking regular expressions. Here are some special characters that you can use with regular expressions. I'm not going to go run through any of them. We will do this again as a class. But really, working with regular expressions in many ways is an art. All right, you can get very good at it, but it takes work. It's like any other thing. It's a skill like any other. All right. I'm just going to jump off again. There's some of the stuff I've shown you: phone numbers, zip codes, etc. We will look at a lot of those. So here's an example of its usage. So we're coming in here and we're saying we are trying to validate that the email was valid, that the phone number was valid, that the zip code was valid rather, and that the birthday was valid. So let's look at why each of these is invalid. There's no .com on the end. Here there's no trailing number, so it's 3-3-3 where it should be 3-3-4. Here's a zip code which it needs to have a minimum of 5 numbers. It has 4. And here there is no 15th month. All right. Hopefully just looking at that makes sense to you. All right. All right. I'm whipping through this quickly, so unfortunately I shouldn't have stopped because the second presentation is going to be unbelievably short. All right. All right. Prime number. So you enter a number and this shows you all the prime numbers between 2 and that number. Okay. This is a neat program because you have to use some logic, some real good logic in order to get that. Okay. All right. Here they're throwing a range error. Notice there's nothing in there and the entry must be a number and it must be greater than 0. Here we're adding a date of birth. I guess that was in there already, but credit card. And what it says is we need the hyphens in there. An expiration date. And they need 2 or 4 numbers at the end to signify a year. All right, well, that was a little bit shorter than I thought it would be. In fact, we're talking 3 minutes. So I wish I had been smart enough to wait, but evidently I was not. Let's close this chapter and look. And in the next chapter, we're going to look at how to work with browser objects, cookies, and web storage. So what I'm going to do, and this is going to look a little bit weird for anybody who's watching these videos, but I'm actually going to go in. Let's see where I am here. See, I'm only at 28%, and I can only have 2 of these working at a time. I can be producing one and working on another, that's fine. But I can't pause this one that I'm working on right now, start a new one, and still be producing this one. So what I'm going to do, and I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to append Chapter 15 onto the end of Chapter 14. All right? So let's take a look. How to work with browser objects, cookies, and web storage. All right, so we'll talk about different things in the browser, like the location object, the history object, cookies in the browser, web storage, which is a relatively new phenomena, the properties of the location object, the methods with the location object, etc., the use of cookies, the differences between session cookies and persistent cookies. All right, how to use web storage, and how to distinguish between session storage and local storage. A lot of stuff in here. All right. So what is this saying? This whole thing in here. Maybe you've seen this kind of thing before, where you see a URL, and then at the end of the URL, you've got a question mark and some information. Well, what comes before the question mark is the actual URL. All right? What comes after the question mark is what's referred to typically as a search string. So this says that the first, whatever first is, it looked like it would be initial. All right, might be name, but they only put a G in there, but it's first. And the last is hopper. All right. So what they say in here is when you work with a location object, these are the different pieces that are in there. All right, so the complete URL, the complete uniform resource locator, is everything that's in here. That's the complete URL. The protocol is HTTP, meaning we're using the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. The host name is www.muroc.com. Really, for the protocol, it's http://, but that's neither here nor there. The port that's being used comes after that colon, so it's port 8181, meaning that when you combine the host name with the port, you get the actual host. www.muroc.com:8181. The path, JavaScript location HTML, means that once I get to the Muroc site here, I want to go to the JavaScript folder and I want to find the location.html file. This is again what we're searching for, and it's going to put all that together into a result. Now that may not have been the best explanation to my knowledge. Everything I said in there was correct. All right? So when you work with the location object, notice what you can do. Reload force reloads the current web page. If for some reason something went wrong or whatever, you can reload the page. All right, I've had this happen. I watch a lot of YouTube videos to try to accrue extra knowledge for me. I watch a lot of other people online. Sometimes I'll be running something and literally the page will get stuck or whatever, and I have to force it to reload. It's kind of like when you're sitting there and you click the reload button, which kind of looks like a curvy little arrow in the browser window. Replace loads a new page in the browser and overwrites the current page. Think about why you might want to do a replace. All right? It may be that a website is changing its URL, or you're referencing something that no longer works. I've done this already where I've created websites and I'll put a link into another site. You have to always go and on a regular basis look and make sure that those links are indeed working. All right? Otherwise, you get what are typically referred to as broken links. You don't want those. All right? Because the worst thing that can happen is for somebody to go out to your website and click a link that's there and have it be broken and not go anywhere. It just doesn't look very professional. All right? So how to load a new page and overwrite an old one. Okay. The history object in there, the history object is designed to allow you to go through your browser history. So for instance, if I go in here and I bring up, I don't know, I have a dream speech from before. If I start hitting my back, okay, you'll notice there's not very much in there. If I go here to the Hunlock, again, probably not going to be very much in here. So I can go backwards and I can go forwards, and I can do that basically using the history object as well as using the forward arrow and the backward arrow. All right. So I can use back to go back one time, forward to go forward one time, or go, which allows me to move forward or backward a certain number of pages. All right. And they give an example or some examples on how this could be used. All right. 4 pages of a tutorial application. If you notice, this is very lockstep. You're supposed to read this as an opening page, click tutorial, which gets you to page 1. It's got some stuff. You click next, you go to page 2. Ideally, you click next, you go to page 3. But after you're on page 1, you can always go backwards from page 2 to page 1, or page 3 to page 2, etc. So they show you how you can create something like this. Notice the key things in there is you've got IDs for your next and your previous. All right, so you can jump forward and backward based on those. All right, let's talk cookies for a couple minutes. First of all, cookies in many ways, I've said this before to other people, have a bad rep. And what I mean is, cookies are not executable files. They are not N-O-T executable files. They are text files. What they are, for lack of better words, is it's kind of information that's been written by a server to the browser or to your machine. All right? Maybe you've had this happen. I've shown this before. I'm not going to do it right now. Where you go out to Amazon and maybe you buy a book. All right? And then when you go out to Amazon again the next time, you'll notice that near the bottom of your screen, it will have similar books. Now think about why Amazon's trying to do that. They want you to buy more books. All right? And they're basing that based off of the first book that you've already bought. So some kind of a cookie was probably written from the server to the browser to let them know that. All right, so a browser usually gets a cookie as part of the HTTP response. We've looked at this before. I'm not going to go over this right now. Okay, so the browser sends the cookie to the server with each request. Different things that you can do with cookies. First of all, cookies are small files. Typically, they can only be up to like 4K, which is 4,000 bytes in length. All right. Cookies may or may not have a long life or a short life. You can set a cookie, if you want to get rid of a cookie that's right now that's working, you can take its age and set it to a negative number. And basically it'll go away. I could set a cookie right now that would not expire for 1,000 years. I wouldn't be here to see it, but I could do it. So you work with cookies, you have session cookies, you have persistent cookies. With a session cookie, and I believe I'm getting my terminology right here. With a session cookie, typically the cookie will expire either right at the end of the session when the user gets out of the browser or maybe 20 minutes after that. With a persistent cookie, it sticks around as long as you tell it to stick around. All right? Now, there's encode and decode values that you can put in cookies. Here is how you create a cookie. Create the cookie. At a minimum, the cookie must have a name. All right? And then you put a simple value in. But there's other things that you can put in as well. All right? And that really and truly should make sense, hopefully, to most people. All right? Now, again, I don't remember. I'm on slide 20, and there's 49. I guess we can probably just keep going in here. I don't want to get myself into a situation where I start creating these videos and I've got half of one chapter and half of another. I have that now, but I don't want that to continue if I can help it. So they have this task list. This is a to-do list. So you put a task in there, you click the button, and it goes into the list right here. If you want to clear the entire list, you can click that button. All right, we actually create stuff like this in some of the other classes. All right. Now, local storage allows you to basically use your own machine like it was a database. And you might say, well, big deal. It's a very big deal. Because in essence, you can store small database files on your local machine. This is something that's fairly new with the advent of HTML5. And I believe it's about 20 meg or so is the size that you can save it. All right. And I just gave it to you very quickly. All right. But we will talk about it in a more depth and breadth of coverage. There's reasons that you may want to use that. A hit counter is kind of neat. Maybe you've gone out to different websites, and when you go out to that website, it'll say you are the 3rd person to visit this. You come back in a few weeks, it says you are the 78th person to visit this. Come back in a few months, it says you are the 1000th person to visit this, etc. That's a hit counter. The example they show here is kind of silly. Web storage works with key value pairs. All right, key value pairs, just so you know, are for lack of better words, it's kind of like a dictionary. If I wanted to find out the word, I don't know, perpetual. Perpetual would be the key, so I would look under the P's in the dictionary, PER, PERP, etc., and eventually I'd find the definition. That's the value. So what they're doing here is they're doing the same thing with web storage. The reason this is important is when they showed this one right here, it didn't look any different. But once you close the browser down, your task list went away. But using it with web storage means that once you close down the browser and you bring it back up again, it'll remember your old tasks. That's quite an important concept. All right, they also go through here using the application panel. All right. And I'm not going to run through that right now. We'll probably look at that. So again, okay, you go through, you hit your F12 key, you see what's up there, you go over to application. You can see what's running. All right, if it got something there, when it expires, etc. All right, and they give you some more information on that here. All right. Again, you can delete a cookie by doing one of two things. It says you can right-click on the item you want to delete and then choose delete. So you could right mouse click on here and choose delete to make it expire immediately. Or you can give it a date that is in the past and it'll be removed as well. All right. That's pretty much it, I believe, yep, for this chapter. So when I return, we are on right now chapter 15. So when we return, I'm going to go into chapter 16, how to work with arrays. Now, we've talked about a lot of that material already, but what that particular chapter does is it goes into arrays in much more depth and breadth of coverage. So I'll be back with that presentation shortly.